overlap. Twitter is live. Hello, Twitter. Hello, Facebook, or whatever app you're using. And hello, YouTube. This is Rob Anderson running for Congress in Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District. For the first time, we're running 3 feeds at the same time because of our special guest, Rubia Garcia from New Orleans.
Nice
Say hello.
To see you. Good evening. It's nice to see you guys.
So this is new for all of us. A little closer together.
A little closer.
All right. How's that? Okay.
Distancing.
Yeah, right. So much.
We've been around each other for a while, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Much like the rest of us and our government, Jane is wondering what these Republicans are doing to her house.
We're live, darling. Yes, we're live. That was my wife saying that we're having a dog uprising in the back room. Since we have such a large gathering, we have Dave Longlane. Say hello.
Hi.
We have Ash Levesque. Say hello. Hey. Of course, campaign manager Claire Stagg is here.
What's up?
And that was my wife, Clarissa, because everybody came along, including cameraman number 1, who is shooting overall footage of this, brought dogs. So we have a plethora of dogs, a plethora of people. It should be a lively, fun. Is yours screaming?
It says that move closer if you're on Wi-Fi, but I'm not sure if I'm on Wi-Fi or not.
Is anybody else using Wi-Fi?
I think I am.
Because I think streaming all these things is chopping up her Facebook.
I'm not.
But at any rate, we're live on these. So while Ruby is getting that set up, I'll go on for a little bit. Most of you know who I am, since 2/3 of these feeds are mine. 66.67% that would be.
Looks like we're back. Are we back?
And it says live. All right.
God.
And of course, everybody knows who Ruby is. Educator, activist. Been involved in a lot of things. Caught attention of us out here in Southwest Louisiana on an article about Clay Higgins.
Yes.
Which made the national news, as we all know. BuzzFeed and The Hill and Politico and a lot.
Everybody
picked it. Yeah, everybody picked it up. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody how you found us?
So my followers, remember, I think I mentioned it once on Instagram before, and my followers, it was coming across my feed, and then what it was talking about was specifically Clay Higgins, and then the incident of him posting the picture of the protesters, the Black peaceful protesters, but they were exercising their Second Amendment rights.
And that picture was in fact, from Kentucky.
Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
For those protesting Breonna Taylor.
Right.
So he posted that, and it was just interesting because I remember distinctly him posting this and him saying, "I'll drop any 10 of you where you stand," and his words and his sentiments sounded amazing. Like the part where he said, "You know what? It doesn't matter your color," on ink and in caps like that. It sounded amazing, but in practice, whenever you have white militia groups showing up that very same evening and you don't do absolutely nothing about it, it tells you that the color obviously must be what's threatening, not necessarily the weaponry or the unification. So I caught that, and then I started looking more into him and him assaulting the bystander and then him jumping from place to place. And then I came across the fact that he was up for election.
Which is where I came in.
Oh my God, look at this. And then it became my business. And then that's when
Exactly.
and then that's when I reach out to you, because if I could do anything to expose a person like Cowboy Clay, the Cajun, what is it, Cajun
John Wayne,
Jesus,
his reality show. I was going to introduce all the dogs, but it looks like they're all being quarantined, as so many of us have been since March because of COVID-19, of course. But so we probably will have a relatively dog-free show. Sorry, I know that we have a lot of animal lovers out there. They love it when they participate, but they'll probably come out at some point. So we'll go on to the news of the day. Just a little while ago, Governor John Bel Edwards issued a statement about the ruling from the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Louisiana, supporting his request to implement a safer emergency election plan for Louisiana. The news is good because it does, in his own words, in the governor's statement, a huge victory not only for the health and safety of the people of Louisiana, but also for their voting rights and our democracy. Now, the only caveat, and not to take away from his victory, of course, is it still has to face the Fifth Circuit on a likely challenge from the Secretary of State, Kyle Hardeman's office. So we're not there yet, but this is a good step. Do you believe, and I know your answer, so this is like a softball, I'm just serving up for you. How do you feel that should we make elections free and fair and open to everybody, or should we restrict elections as much as possible?
I mean, obviously, I believe the answer is that more people should be able to vote, but more people, it should be an automatic voter registration. If this is a civil right, then we should have it. That includes even when I go to jail. I don't believe that I should stop becoming a citizen of the United States because I made a mistake, right?
Right. Made a mistake.
It's funny because I'm being held accountable for a law, but at the end of the time, you're denying me my rights by law. You know what I mean?
Right.
But nonetheless, I believe it's a universal voting thing, and I do believe that people should have election days off, so that way, no matter what, it's just
you believe it should be a
absolutely
as
a national holiday and a paid day off, to be honest,
right?
Because that's how we're at. How many people can't afford? I myself, as a single mother of 2 children, had to bring my children into the voting booth with me. So having that being said, I don't have access to
affordable daycare,
affordable daycare like that. So. Absolutely. I believe that there should be transportation given for particularly elderly and people like that who should be out.
Well, the good news is there's a lot of people who step up to do that.
Absolutely. People and
But
activists in the community.
I believe, as you do, I actually believe the government should get more involved and should be invested in its own citizens participating. I think 100% of people who are eligible to vote legally should be able to vote. But our turnout in the last election was sadly, 50% nationally in the 2016. And I think 2018.
75% it was higher. I think it was 67.
In the 2018, you mean?
Well, 2018 was lower.
Oh,
Yeah.
2018 was lower than 2016. Nevertheless, it wasn't 100%.
I think that the underlying issue and the underlying, you have to think about, these are like the consequences. All right.
Sure.
So what are the causes? The causes are systemic miseducation.
Sure.
And chronic.
And misinformation.
Exactly.
Deliberate, which we call propaganda.
You can't necessarily be outright in the types of ways that you want to manipulate systems and in order to enact some kind of class or systemic racism. You have to do it a little bit subtle. And in my professional opinion, when I was in high school in 2001, when they passed No Child Left Behind, I genuinely believe that right there, where they tied standards to teachers and evaluations, and then students had to start taking tests every single year, and then they tie it to English language arts and mathematics, and they take it away from civics, social studies, economics, all of these things. So when you're talking about, since 2001, if you're talking about 3 million students who are graduating every year for the last 2 decades, you're talking about a significant portion of the American population that are just completely civically illiterate. So it's really easy to then understand why so many people do not vote. They do not believe that their voice, and they fall for the misinformation, as you said, in the fake news. They can't decipher from a primary, secondary source. They can't decipher fake news from real news.
And then they vote for a demagogue.
Yeah, they'll.
From my point of view. Yeah, it was a reality TV campaign, the 2016. And that's how I believe Trump was elected. We are seeing evidence more so this year than in any time previous in our country's history of complete ineptitude at the federal level, starting from the top, going through all the systems on down, and they can spin it or explain it. But when you look at the bones, the facts of the matter, it is obvious that our government is not competent. They don't do things well. The very basic scientific recommendations from the WHO were challenged as political early on. And so rather, they offered us tests as soon as this was discovered, and Trump turned them down. And he says he banned travel to China, and that's how he was, he secured our borders, except we know that during his ban, at least 40,000 people still traveled under exemptions and what have you. So if you're not even going to lock down like you say you did, and then turn right around and downplay, by his own words, with the Woodward interview, we know this to be true now and not just suspected. If you're going to downplay the virus, then you have set up your electorate to downplay it as well, because they follow you. You're supposed to be a leader. So, I don't need a leader to tell me not to panic and not to tell me that an asteroid's coming for Earth. That was a problem I had with Deep Impact, the one with Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
He's like, we're just not going to tell everybody. We don't want to panic. Well, I have a right. I elected you. He's not my boss. You're not my real dad, Donald. He doesn't get to tell me what to do. Give me the information. Let me deal with it.
Right.
And since we most of us, and certainly on my campaign we did, and I'm sure you did as well, listen to legitimate sources from around the world. We know that other countries exist. So we had heard about COVID when China first began experiencing it, long before it was a threat to us. So we already knew that all that we had for now was social distancing, hand washing. That was a big thing at the beginning. And for some reason, toilet paper. Let's not go into that. But the masks and hand washing were known right up front by people who independently checked resources. I didn't care what Donald Trump said.
Right.
I knew how to react. But most people don't read as much complete coverage as we do. We're like news junkies. I mean, we read stuff from all over. So the elected official's job is to absolutely translate. I mean, you could have downplayed it without downplaying it. You could have said, look, we're on top of this, but here's a pandemic coming, and here's what we know, and here's what we know to work. And I'm going to pass on recommendations to the governors to do this in their states instead of complete chaos and disarray, which is what we had.
We're living in a world.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on there.
But
it's been an irritating year.
This is why I've gotten so, honest to God, frustrated lately. And it comes off in these rants and things like that. But I get so tired. Like I've told you, ignorance, I have two distinct definitions. Ignorance is when you just don't know any better.
Right.
Stupid is when you've been told, but you just choose to refuse to accept it. And it's like your cognitive dissonance refuses to allow you to accept your own your biases, and you just will not accept an objective truth. I can talk with people who are open, even if we disagree.
Sure.
We might seek the same ends, but ultimately our means are completely different. And there's just the lack of tolerance. But we're living in an age where even someone as like Bob Woodward, right?
Sure.
His credibility is now all of a sudden questioned. Okay, not to say
Bob
that he's
Woodward.
a perfect, he's not to say he's a perfect guy, but this is where it comes down to I believe that's why he did what he did, the way that he did what he did, because at this point, I believe that some of the people who had supported Donald Trump, they're getting to a point where it's like, okay, I'm just tired. I'm tired of all the things and even the possibility that this might be true. And then it gets to a point where even Bob Woodward's coming out and saying, this is the man who helped uncover what? This is deep throat. Exactly. Deep throat, ultimate corruption. Like, come on now.
Well, he was not deep throat.
I know, but deep throat, that's the connection, right?
Yeah, they're the ones who talk to.
This is a person whose credibility, and he held literally all of that. Like, I mean, this is
held a president accountable and brought down the Nixon president.
Exactly. But this is a president that unlike Nixon, his pride will be the death of him. He will not step down. And this is why I'm genuine. I've been telling my followers, and they can vouch for me in the comments. I've been I'm deathly afraid of what happens November 4th. Like when he wakes up and his Twitter fingers hit, like first thing, as soon as he loses the day after, what's going to happen? What's going to happen from November to January 20th? This is a genuine concern.
This is a good one for me to bring in one of our guest stars.
Sure.
To talk about that subject with. Who would like to volunteer to talk about what happens on the day after?
Why would any of us know what happens on the day after?
No, to talk about it. As
hypothetically, what's going to happen the day after? What will Trump do between November to January?
This has actually been gamed out.
Okay, then you're probably the one to speak.
Yeah,
calmness is good.
Not pretty.
Well, then let's not go into that.
Okay.
Let's save another one for a group conversation.
It's hard to answer, but
it is. That's why I was kind of passing it off.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the possibilities just because of his fingers and his
we have
pride.
to stick to the Constitution. Let's put it that way.
But
That's
he's shown that he's above the Constitution and above the rule of law.
Well, he certainly believes that. But the
Yeah.
rest of us don't. So
This
we're going to have to let the checks and balances
This
take
is
in.
why you need to get there in order to prove that that's not the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rob, do you have any YouTube questions?
No, not a one. Nobody's on YouTube today. I am live.
No questions either.
That's weird.
Yeah, they were asking what happens if he wins.
Oh, there you go. Field some of your questions.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Some questions. Let's get some questions.
Yeah. Political, please. Well, she often gets, like marriage proposals. We don't need that. Serious questions.
Serious questions.
Or even stuff about. Sure. Okay. A question from Mosh. Yes.
Rubia,
Mhm.
what was your take on what you saw when you went to Lake Charles in that area in the last couple days?
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
that's an awesome question. So
You're right.
ultimately, yeah, when we
Because
came
we've
out
done
here,
videos. I've forgotten that people haven't followed the
yeah.
timeline. So yeah, do the timeline from Sunday.
So I got here Sunday. We met. We planned out, mapped out the 2 locations. We went to the center, the Southwest Louisiana Center, and then we went to the Greater St. Mary's. We went and got donations, and then we had taken them to those 2 locations on Monday. Came back on Monday, had dinner, and then discussed the plan of attack for the next day. Went back out there the next day, and then
Which
on the
happened
second day,
again, and this
Mhm.
time they wanted baking soda
baking
and
soda
flashlights and batteries.
flashlights and batteries and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he brought we brought those things out to Lake Charles, back to those same 2 centers. And
do you have
then
an idea of the image? Like, do you have an itemized idea of what you bought at Walmart? Like, how many bottles
Yeah.
of Lysol, Tide, diapers, all that? What was the amount you brought? Like, tell us the amount of supplies you brought up there.
You mean number of, or
it was
Was
hundreds
it-
of dollars worth of stuff, and I
Yeah.
think that's more than enough.
I do have it itemized, of course.
Yeah.
It was 30 boxes or 20 boxes of baking soda, 8 of the dual flashlights, 2 flashlights and battery combos.
It was it filled
and
up
then
the
the
back
day
of my truck
Yeah, twice on 2 consecutive
Monday
days.
and Tuesday.
It was $300 or $400 worth
But
of leaves.
overall, my sentiments generally were, I mean, the destruction, like I said, it never gets any less heartbreaking. You know what I mean? And it's the second day when I went out there, I met up with one of my followers, a community organizer out there, Joshua Anderson, last name.
There you go.
Eh,
No relation.
no relation, but nonetheless, linked up with him, and he was kind enough to show me around, and he took me around all of Lake Charles, and got to see the different neighborhoods, and he pulled up the map of the outages in the
Right.
large, huge sections of Lake Charles that are still without power.
Mostly North Lake Charles.
Yeah. And he was just breaking it down, and I was that's ultimately the plan. It baffles me sometimes, because genuinely it makes me feel like here we are 2 weeks later, and this is something that comes around every single year. And I know that the men and women are out there, and they're doing what they need to do. They're out there and they're working. You know what I mean? It just feels like it's never enough. And this is just me personally. It feels like it's never efficient enough to sit here and say that this is something that we deal with almost every single year for at least a season, and to not feel like we're as prepared as we are.
I will give a little shout out here to that I saw personally on the
Mhm.
ground in these situations. Shout out to our first responders,
Yeah,
our local police
That's what I'm
department,
saying. They're doing their best.
and the local union IBEW, the line workers, power workers. A lot of them came in from out of states, but we do have unionized electricians here. So these are the people who got Lake Charles. Now it took almost 3 weeks, but got Lake Charles, Westlake, to Quincy, where I am, Sulphur, on up to DeRidder, and even Shreveport was without power when the hurricane first hit. Got them back and up and running. It's taken a couple of weeks, but in a large sense, a lot of them had to rebuild the entire power grid. So it was devastating, as you saw.
I think
I just wanted to give credit where it's due.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to. Let me correct myself or elaborate, because I was saying that I see them out there and I see the work that they're doing. But what I'm saying is no different than what you were saying earlier. It's our administration is incompetent. So at this point in time,
I did not see a whole lot of FEMA out there.
That's what I'm saying. These men shouldn't be having to work this hard on a problem that is something that comes around every single. They should have everything that they need, 100% full backing. This is where it is. But this happens when you have people that are in place that know what they're doing. You know,
Dave, Dave works in logistics and shipping and has some idea of what would normally happen with FEMA under normal circumstances when a hurricane of this magnitude is about to have a known strike. What would normally happen?
Yeah, actually, this is like kind of case in point every time except for the last year or so. Basically, they're going to be staging up like hundreds, if not thousands, of like trucks and vehicles, whatnot, and emergency personnel about a day to 2 days before the storm hits.
And they do it right outside of the affected zone.
Within 100 miles or so.
Within 100 miles.
The thing is, there's always some give and take as to where it will exactly land.
Sure, of course.
So you don't want to be in the path of the storm, but you want to be nearby and react quickly. And this year, they didn't what the hell? Where are you?
I still don't know.
Well, no, I mean they have showed up on the scene.
Oh no! I know they set up a staging in.
The logistics nightmare in this particular case is like just catastrophic. Like they are actually sending electrical trucks and electrical crews back to their home
I know.
states right now,
Especially because of Sally.
They don't have enough telephone pole replacements to be able to put the power lines back up. That should have been staged weeks ago.
That's my point.
Yeah.
What are you going to need? You're going to need a bunch of the bulldozers in order to even do an initial push to get down. Then you're going to need.
You take over on camera for a second.
You're going to need the poles. You're going to need the lines. These are all things that you're
keep
going
talking
to
about the
automatically and 100% know. You're going to need them. Period. At every single storm. This is not like brand new information. You know what I mean?
Hi, I'm Rob.
No, you're not.
Okay, fine. I can't be Rob today. I'm
This is Dave.
So yeah, like I actually work in the transportation industry, and I do hurricane work every year for the last 5 years. I know exactly what's going on for the most part, like the whole logistical thing, and they screw the pooch this year. I mean,
Somebody just said, look, she said, Julie Sebastian, Louisiana always seems to get forgot about when a hurricane hits, and now we've got another situation in Alabama and Florida.
yeah, and about that, so my particular, like the part of the industry I work in relies on contracts from local, state, and federal levels, and they don't actually have a contract with the state of Mississippi and Alabama, so they've been waiting for the last 3 days to find out if they're going to get a contract from like DLA or FEMA or DOD, because if they don't do that from a federal level, they can't actually show up to work. So we got like a couple hundred trucks standing by waiting
to go
do
help,
work.
but just need like
to keep the power on in, like, hospitals and kind of critical infrastructure. They can't show up because there's no contract from the federal government to actually pay for it. I don't understand why it's taking this long.
This is my point. This is not something that we don't do. This is not something that's brand. We just hit this with Laura like 2.5 weeks ago,
I know,
3
right?
weeks ago, and now we have another
warning.
What letter are we on in the alphabet for hurricanes again? Or are we about to start over?
We're on V.
We're about to start over at this point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I mean, at this point, how many letters of the alphabet do we need to go through? Like the Greek alphabet next? Do we need to go like what do we need to get through?
Just not the Cyrillic alphabet.
I'm just saying, like, do we need to add a couple letters like CH in Spanish or the double L's? I mean,
well, I'll say this much. On V, it's like the fifth to last letter in the alphabet. When we hit 28 total, that will be a new record for the number of named storms in a year.
but this is my point. So you mean to tell me that where are all the things in mass that are secured and safe and ready to be deployed in the case of an emergency like this?
Not around here. Not
You
this
mean to
time.
tell me in the greatest country in the world that the best things that are provided to us is water to douse on fires, dirt hills to prevent from floods, and
We
nothing?
we can't get telephone poles 2 weeks
telephone
after the
poles
event. No, sorry,
after
3 weeks. 3 weeks after the event, we can't get telephone poles.
Well, you can, but you have the people that are willing to work, right? The workers that are willing to go to work, but it's the breakdown in government that doesn't provide for it. And
That's
this is the
exactly
problem.
correct. Yes.
This is why I want to muckrake for a living.
Well, you got my vote.
Cheers to that.
And on that note,
We'll take it back over. All right. Here's Rob, guys.
So let's get back. Where
I'm
are we
not
at?
the star,
I'm going to
she's the
take
star, but
some
I'm the
questions if
co-star.
I can.
it's all good. Any more? Any new questions?
Let me see. Do we have any
Oh,
questions?
look, we got some on here. Hold on. I have been. This is from Gerald. I have been seeing Lake Charles almost every day since Laura. The devastation doesn't get easier to see. That's true. But the amazing work of those helping clean up and restore power is encouraging to witness. Amen and hallelujah. Cajun Aggie says, "Hi, Robin Rubia. Thanks for hosting this chat." That's Aggie. He's actually a
Aggie.
personal friend. He was part of the Louisiana Veterans for Medical Cannabis
Oh, nice.
event we did together last year.
Need
So
your
he's a
help.
great guy, veteran. And obviously pro medical cannabis. Stephen Armstrong, evening, folks. What's the current state of the municipal water supplies for the cities and towns there in Louisiana? As with anything, I don't know if you have a good answer, but as with anything, I know it varies from district to district. It depends. I know ours was never affected in Quincy, but
The state of municipal water supply is like in regards to after the hurricane? Or?
After the hurricane, I know they immediately went to a boil order.
Yeah, so there's going to be probably a boil order in most of the affected
District area.
for quite a while.
Quite a while. Okay.
Our water systems are very vulnerable, and I think there's between 6 and 8 that are like still under federal consent decrees.
Oh wow.
Throughout the state, so we get a lot of like bacteria and like weird flesh-eating amoebas.
Which is why they go straight to the boil order. It's not a chemical contamination per se. But obviously-
we have like lead problems, except for probably the other side of the state.
Yeah, but what's a little lead between friends?
Oh, of course. But yeah, it's not great. They're gonna have like a.
That's something we really need
just
to
to be safe boil order for a hot minute there, but a large portion of Southwest Louisiana still doesn't have the running water right now. So.
And
Do you have running water?
I never lost it. Yeah.
Okay.
Even at the beginning when we didn't have power for 17 days, for those of you who are just catching, didn't see it on Twitter feed, but we had water from the very beginning. We were very fortunate. We were still under a boil order from the beginning. So to partial answer as much as we can at this point for your question, they're going to continue the boil order for the foreseeable future until they're sure, after all these other repairs are going on, that everything is, safe and drinkable. And infrastructure is obviously a key part of our platform, which means upgrading all these outdated water supplies so that a hurricane, which you're going to get every year if you live on the Gulf, does not turn your city completely uninhabitable, which is what happened to Lake Charles. For 2 to 3 weeks, we absolutely relied on outside help, or people would have died.
Right.
One of the things we did early on was just what we could do. We were driving out there every day, because our own house, we'd bring ice, we'd bring, the foods. We kept a hurricane supply kit in our house.
Mm-hmm.
But after we realized that we were able to evacuate and our house was not damaged, we took all that food and we donated it.
Right.
So it was all dry goods. It was all stuff that was in a hurry. People couldn't get access to food, but we donated ice, and people said, a lot of those folks need refrigeration for their medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, thank you, Rob, because you literally probably saved somebody's life. Somebody needed ice to keep their medication cold, which is not possible. If you don't have a generator, you had no power for 2 to 3 weeks. Some people are still coming back online. So, we're doing what we can, but this really needs to be addressed on a federal level, that a storm that knocked down some power poles and all of a sudden, you've got beyond, we turned into Bombay, third world city. They supposedly mobilized to Camp Beauregard to be ready to deploy. Don't understand it. I heard the same things, but again, I'm not saying FEMA wasn't there. I just said I never saw any evidence of FEMA. Go ahead, Dave.
If that was actually the case, they would have already mobilized by now. I mean, I was in
Beauregard. Yeah, that's not
I was in
far.
the National Guard for 9 years too. I also worked hurricanes on that side. That's something that
it doesn't take long.
The day before or the day of.
Right.
It doesn't happen 2 days afterwards or 3 weeks afterwards.
Then next comment. My dad went to help clean up, and he has never seen anything like the destruction from Laura. Amen. And if this was Miami, not to pick on bigger cities or something like that, this would have been all over the national news probably every day for weeks. Whereas we got kind of the first day and then they moved on. The only people spreading the story are people who are here in our state saying, hey, Louisiana, we got our asses kicked here. This wasn't a joke. 150 mile an hour winds when the storm came inland. And I'm talking 50 to 70 miles inland. Where I live 50 miles inland from the Gulf, and we had 150 mile an hour winds in my house. I mean, giant trees snapped over right in my yard. It's everywhere. When we drove down from where we'd evacuated on the first day after, the road was impassable. They were literally power crews cutting trees and blocking lanes so we could get around to go past. And this is 24 hours later. And it was weeks before all the roads were clear of just the debris of actual power lines being in the middle of sulfur in between, like Walmart and Kroger in a major city. It's covered with cables. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely like a war zone. It was bizarre. And people trying to, not knowing, if the power's out in a municipality, every traffic light is a 4-way stop. I cannot tell you, people don't know how to understand. If there's no power, you stop. That's how it's a 4-way stop. You ever been to a 4-way stop? Person to the right has right of way. Please live it, learn it, know it. Hey, y'all, says Nicole. Did you have any questions on yours?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
It says, Rubia, since Katrina, why hasn't your region of the country upgraded your power grids and get rid of the poles?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that one. Thank you. Thank you, whoever
So
you are.
first, let's take a breather and tell my followers who you are and introduce
Oh,
yourself so that way
okay.
everybody's clear
Hi.
and up to
Thank
date.
you, Bruce, for that question. I'm Rob Anderson. I'm actually running for Congress in Louisiana's 3rd congressional district, which is Southwest Louisiana. And to answer that question, Claire had some input, so I wanted to hear before I went and said what I was going to say.
I was just gonna say, one, we're broke. Two, that's not an excuse, but also there's water like a foot underground, so it's hard to carry lines.
I already know that.
The federal government doesn't care about us.
Yes. Yes, that is a thing that our water table is very high. When they say we live in a swamp and in the bayou, we literally live in a swamp, and 100 feet that way is literally a pocket bayou. Not a joke. If we felt like going mobile, you could walk right on into
I
it.
can take you outside and show you the
It's
bayou.
for
out
real
there.
So the water table here in Louisiana is very shallow. Utility, are buried 2 to 3. Power is usually closer to the surface than others. But even in Louisiana, 1 to 2 feet underground, you're in the water.
That's
However,
why we don't bury our dead below ground.
right. So on the other hand, as Claire pointed out, the federal government doesn't care about that. And it is also true that it's the 21st century and we've invented waterproofing stuff. It's
Right.
true. It exists now. It's really cool. So we could have our power poles underground, which is an investment in infrastructure. And it's not a joke. It's not like, oh, let's just put some, you're talking about billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars, but that's billions
But
of
the
dollars. jobs,
entire
too,
Gulf
and
region for-
ultimately over time.
Right. This isn't money you're throwing away. This is like
Just-
a home improvement loan. You're spending it on your own country. You're putting it back
Exactly.
into the people. That way, every storm that comes by, your power doesn't get knocked out. Think of your quality of life going up. Think about your cost of recovery. Without that, people would right now be concentrating on tree removal and getting their roofs fixed.
Mhm.
But they wouldn't be worried that they're in 100-degree Louisiana weather without air conditioning and undrinkable water while trying to get their roofs fixed and, all that going on. They'd at least have power. So that's a major thing. And it is one of my key parts of my platform. There have to be ways other than literally taking up creosote painted trees and hanging power lines from them and wondering why air that moves at 150 miles an hour might knock them over. So, that's my take. I get frustrated with what I see. A lot of times when you look at Louisiana infrastructure, they do everything the stupid way.
Mhm.
That's how I would say it. I've lived around the country. I've traveled around a bit, and you look at how to do intersections, how to do roundabouts, how to do electric grids, water grids, all of this infrastructure. And what we do it is often the cheap way, which ends up being the stupid way.
Right.
Where sometimes if you spend a little bit more money, a little more investment, getting it right the first time, it makes everything better because that's just something you don't have to worry about.
We have a
Band-Aid
bridge on an open wound.
We have a bridge over the Calcasieu River in Lake Charles, the I-10 bridge, which they started talking about aging, that it was getting a little old. They got to start looking at replacing it while Reagan was president. This is not a joke. This is how long this bridge they've known needs replacing. And at this point, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. It's going to be like a Netflix special, the collapse of the Calcasieu River Bridge. Thousands of people are going to die. It's at 6% efficiency, this
Right.
bridge. If you ever get a chance to drive over it, don't. But I mean, I do every day, and you do. It's just because there's no other. There's the 210.
I'm not too fond of bridges and heights.
Yeah,
and things like
and
that.
this
I'm not
is-
going to lie. That's
and
why
there's been so many departments arguing about it for years and years. Whose problem is it? Is the federal government, state matching fund? And you look at it, and it could be done at any time, except they're literally just not going to do it till it breaks.
It's a major.
It's a project,
But it's the major way.
right?
That
From Jacksonville to Los Angeles, you got to go across that bridge. The I-10 corridor, for many of you don't know, and I've driven about 2/3 of it, starts in Orange Park, Florida, in Jacksonville. That's where I-10 starts, and it heads, and I've been to it up to the Grand Canyon, and then it goes on towards Los Angeles. I mean, this is a fairly important road. It's a major, and didn't you say the only place in the United States where that road goes down to? Right, but it goes down to one lane is in our state.
Yeah, that bridge it goes Washington Street exit I-10.
Yeah, I-10 turns into a one-lane road. It's yeah. So we do things a lot of times. I'm glib sometimes, but I call it the stupid way. I just think that yes, some things cost more, but good products cost more. Sometimes you have to invest in your people.
I mean, it's the ultimate what you want to do, and I'm just a person of investing in human capital. I don't see the harm in investing in infrastructure. I don't see the harm investing in education. I don't see the harm in investing in universal health care and making people happy. But that's investing in how many, that's what I'm saying. The countries that do invest into their human capital, into making sure that their citizens are well paid and are healthy and living in a healthy environment, these countries thrive mainly because they feel that their government takes care of them. And in the age of distrust and people wanting to separate themselves from the government, but this is a double play. I wanted to say this earlier. You know, you want some of the same people that are saying I want less government are some of the same people screaming out for FEMA right now, and it's like,
indeed they are.
It's what do you want? You know, pick and choose. Do you want them in? You want them out? And I guess that's kind of fair, kind of unfair, but nonetheless, I believe that investing into the infrastructure, whether like that or in the systemic ones, and criminal justice reform and rehabilitation and mental health. Mental health is such a huge.
Right, but my mindset on it, to clarify for you, not to interrupt, but I'll take that as a question. My mindset on it is investment into human capital.
Human capital.
Is healthcare and infrastructure.
Everything.
That's what I mean by those. When I say infrastructure, I mean stuff that the people need. Good roads, affordable daycare.
Oh, absolutely.
To me, that goes under either healthcare or infrastructure. We can put it in one of them because if your people are happy, healthy, able to go to work, get just that little bit of help is all they need from the government. They don't need the government running their lives. They need that much little bit of help. And then all of a sudden they can go be the best person they could be. They're freed up if they want to go back to school or if they want to go to extended school while working. You know, why can't we regulate a little bit runaway healthcare costs, which have become so drastic now that you can, you know, and the obviously the eternal crimes and mental health and dental care are not included in healthcare, that we break it up so much that healthcare is only affordable for the upper middle class or rich. Good.
Is that
full
justice
healthcare.
whining like that?
It's some dog doing it. So I consider all of that health infrastructure. That's investing in your people. Just like a home improvement loan, you're betting on your own country to succeed. You give them better healthcare, better roads, and you know, and the country will become great.
Human capital.
But you have to do it through the diversity of people, not excluding anybody, but for everybody.
Absolutely.
That's my take.
Absolutely. Let me see if they have any more questions.
Oh, I know I had a statement here, so let's see. Yes, our whole state has the poverty mindset. It's why people in poverty spend more over time because, for example, they buy the cheap boots to get holes and have to replace in 6 months versus the expensive boots, the boots that last for 10 years. Absolutely. So Cajun then asked, so if elected, how would you use your influence to get our state representatives, mostly conservative at the moment, to pass the bills it would take to enact change? Well, the office I'm running for is federal, so obviously a lot of the influence over the state legislature is merely doing things like legalizing or pushing to be part of legalizing, obviously one of 435 reps. I'm not the president, not running for that. Be part of the movement to legalize cannabis at the federal level, which makes it then a fait accompli for the local level and makes it ridiculous for them to still have it, illegal. So that's where we're talking about, to get rid of it as a Schedule I narcotic and legalize it, tax it, use it for the benefit of Louisiana. And you could grow hemp. We're already a great agricultural state that grows rice and, the sugar cane and soybeans, and why not hemp? It's a great crop that has a faster cycle than lumber, which we also grow.
You can grow industrial hemp here.
Right, but there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. I like to do it. I just meant if it makes it easier for like the small farmer, for example, to get into hemp growing. Right now, it is legal to grow industrial hemp. Claire pointed out, which I believe they passed last year. But if you look at the law, which I did, it takes some hoops to do. It's not just you go plant hemp and harvest it. You have to do things. So by legalizing it at the federal level, that's how you enact that. And that does tie into our criminal justice program.
What is the status of our marijuana laws in Louisiana?
You want to field this one? Because we're talking about local laws.
So
Claire, is it, you want the front seat for this or are you good back there?
Come sit next to me.
Yeah, come sit next.
Everyone, this is Claire.
Claire is the whiz kid at Louisiana legislation. No doubt.
Resident
Don't let her
nerd.
tell you otherwise.
So in Louisiana, we have actually had legalized medical marijuana since like 73. like the last time we rewrote the Constitution, but you couldn't grow, sell, prescribe, or have it. So like you could use it, but you can't like have it at all. So I think it was back in like 2015 or probably 16 that they expanded the medical marijuana program, and they expanded it to very few things. It was like if you are getting like chemotherapy, you can get a medical marijuana, but there was no prescribers. So then last year we pretty much opened the door for the LSU, Louisiana State University, and Southern University in Baton Rouge to grow the medical marijuana supply for the state, which they are doing. And there are a list of prescribers who will be able to, maybe they already can, but will be able to prescribe it to you, prescribe it, recommend it. I think there's a legal distinction there.
Justice.
And we also expanded the conditions you can get it for. So like PTSD is on there now, and like fibromyalgia and like different pain disorders, which was really good. That was something the governor was in favor of. We also legalized industrial hemp, but like Rob said, there's like a lot of hoops you have to jump through. And we actually sat down and read the bill one day, and it was like 1 trillion pages of how you like have to ship and label and transport and like all of the things. So basically like 4 very rich lumber farmers can grow industrial hemp. As far as decriminalization, I think that there are 3 cities that have decriminalized marijuana, being New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and maybe Shreveport. That just means that you get like a ticket instead of getting hauled off to jail if you have less than, and I think this is hilarious, 2 pounds. Pounds. That's a lot.
That's a significant amount of weed.
That's a lot of weed. But you know what? I'll take a $40 ticket over
2 pounds.
getting
So
hauled off to
a
jail.
$40 ticket. Yeah, that's insane.
So that's pretty much the state of
I love
play
the fireflies. I
marijuana.
can see them through the window. Oh my
Okay,
God.
cool.
I was geeked out the other night when I walked out to my car. I was like, oh my God, it's fireflies. I haven't seen fireflies in
You have to
years.
take your camera out after.
Yeah, it was.
Do you have any more questions for Claire on?
I really wanted to know the status, the status of the legalization, and then where you were going to stand on it and what you were going to do about it. You
We're
go
trying to
ahead.
get it accurate. Claire knows all the laws. As
Team
everybody
builder.
knows, she helped.
She's the woman. She is the
She
woman.
is.
I'm gonna put you back in this seat, Rob.
Rob.
Thanks, folks. Good to see you.
And I'm back.
You had, if I could, right quick.
Sure.
You had a question on the Twitter, and it was, what about a national hurricane insurance? I know we've talked about that a little bit, going into like a program that would replace at large natural disaster, like insurance, being the National Flood Insurance Program, stuff like that. So that you just don't have a small risk pool of people who constantly flood the federal government fighting over whether they're going to buy out their houses or not. So would you stand for
A national.
national hurricane insurance?
I would assume so. From what you're describing, like, and how do they avoid the question, or do they address it, of like all natural disasters that can happen across all of us, such as tornadoes, for example,
Fires.
earthquakes and fires that are happening in the West Coast.
Fire nados that are now
The
happening on
fire
the West
na-
Coast.
And then, next we'll have the fire NATO hurricanes.
Like hoodoo.
So, I mean, do they separate those in, or is it
So-
nationalized just hurricanes?
Like fire insurance.
Yeah.
Very limited. The biggest of those insurance programs is the National Flood Insurance Program, which they renew for 5 years. Every time it's always a big fight. You might remember Justin DeWitt, who ran back in 2018, ran on just adding all natural disasters to one nationalized insurance program. So whether you are susceptible to wildfires in
Right.
California, tornadoes in Oklahoma,
A nationalized insurance.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Basically make a big risk pool, sort of.
Of natural disaster pool,
Yeah.
basically.
And
Absolutely, I'd be in
price
favor of
that based on risk, and it would obviously cover
Which are prevalent, and not only that, they're cyclical, meaning there are certain regions of it was our turn this time. Our thoughts go out to Mississippi right now, who's gotten hit by, was it Hurricane Sally when it hit, or was it tropical storm? It was a Cat 2.
It's mostly Alabama.
Oh, it was Alabama more than Mississippi. I know
in Pensacola area.
and Pensacola. Okay, so they're the ones being hit right now. 3 weeks ago was us, and then of course, Florida is a regular, and even the Carolinas. And a few years ago, Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey. It's a big thing, hurricanes. And then, of course, the West Coast has their own issues right now with wildfires and, of course, perennially earthquakes.
I have
The Midwest has tornadoes, and apparently now we have to add firenadoes to like
to the list. I have a topic of discussion. We need to push solar energy. What is your stance on oil and solar energy? Let's go there.
I think energy industries are the ones that are most behooved to be investing in alternative energies. If you want to be in the energy market, and right now you just drill for oil, then you're actually just an oil company, and then you shouldn't get tax breaks based on anything else. However, if you are constantly expanding and making battery life better and making solar cells better and trying to expand solar markets, then you can come talk about tax breaks. That's my take on it. Now they're looking at it. Is it the Amendment 5 they're trying to add this year to the ballot about oil companies just get like no taxes forever?
Forever.
And this is where we are in Louisiana. They literally want to add an amendment. It's going to be on the ballot. By the way, I tell everybody to vote no on Amendment 5.
No on Amendment 5.
That's the correct answer, right? Vote no.
Yes.
Just make sure, because sometimes they word it that it's backwards.
So for no taxes on oil forever?
Right, but sometimes they word it inverted, so you don't even know what you're voting on. That's their trick. And you go, yes, no, yeah, no, and you pick one. Vote no. They're trying to get taxes, oil companies just to be tax exempt forever in Louisiana, and then they wonder why people like us go, this is insane. They are a big industry, but in this district alone, Lake Charles, and in the state of Louisiana, as you know, 25% of the nation's oil and gas flow through our district. We're very important to the national energy portfolio. But in our district alone, oil and gas is only the 5th largest industry. So why are we killing ourselves, literally putting the tax burden on the people, taking it off the oil companies when healthcare is actually the biggest industry in this district? And that's investing in jobs that actually helps us. So why wouldn't we give healthcare tax breaks? Why oil and gas? And number 5, retail is higher, in our district. Education is higher. Spend more money on students, spend more money on trade schools. So that's my reaction, that if oil companies want to continue to get tax breaks, they need to start bringing in solar energy, which means more jobs to Louisiana, because Louisiana is an $8 billion market for solar, by the way. I talked to a solar guy. He's been waiting in the wings, rooting for us since he found out we were running. He doesn't donate. It's not anything backroom or illegal. He's just very openly saying, hey, I'll give you the free info. He came to me because I was pro solar, not the other way around. I said, it's an $8 billion market. We've done the studies. They're drooling to jump into Louisiana, and it'll make us greener energy. And
that doesn't benefit the oil and gas.
But they need a level, exactly. So it doesn't play a level playing field.
Darn, no wonder they pay billions.
That's all the solar
and
industry.
Lobbying against it. Oh, damn.
That's all the solar industry wants, is a level playing field. They want an equal shot that the oil companies have at our market.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Then you probably wouldn't have hurricanes and climate change and all of these tornadoes. Fire-nados, that's bad. You're still going to have natural disasters, so let's be fair. But I'm sorry, all right? At some point, you have fires in the Arctic. You have sea level rise. New Orleans won't exist by 2100 at this rate. You're going to have literally the West Wing is going to have like a beachfront property. Let's be real.
I will have to tone that back a little bit. I love your energy, but I have to say that oil companies aren't solely responsible.
Well,
and everybody knows I'm not in the pocket of oil and gas, but I don't blame them for everything. However, they are part of what needs to change, right? We want to hold them accountable.
I'll be fair. However, when we're
because a lot of people in our district, work for oil and gas, and while they may not own part of it, they feel.
I guess I take it back to the robber baron era, and I'm just like, from the very beginning, I haven't been a big fan of y'all.
And I look at.
I haven't been a big fan of you guys from the very beginning.
What we love is alternative energy.
And that's what I'm saying. Solar, wind,
Mostly because one, it's good jobs for the people. Who
Yes.
use that. You bring in Amazon, you bring in Google, you bring in Apple. They build factories here. Let's get some
Poor
production.
Justice probably needs to go outside.
Although
We're
the idea of
called
them building
to-
iPhones in Louisiana is probably a reach.
So if you let
considering
I'm
our
gonna
climate.
say this on here.
Not gonna happen. But
Couple last questions. If you have any questions, you
We'll do
guys,
that, right?
we still got a couple hundred people that are sitting here watching. If you have any questions,
Dave has
now is your time.
Dave's
Dave
got
has a
one.
question.
It's actually not my question. It's a question that came in through a different Christian, if you give me a moment to find my phone.
I'm going to read this real quick while you're
Go ahead.
getting set up. I'm a firm believer we have three branches of government for a reason. Of course, budgets are supposed to go through Congress, and no president has stretched the loopholes to how they can divert funding more so than Trump. I added those words in, but and that is true. That's what we're worried about when we go towards fascism. You're going towards a totalitarian government. It's supposed to be three branches that come to some form of agreement. Is how legislation get passed. They don't always agree across the board, but that's how you get a law. Is they all have to vote on it.
Mhm.
And for Trump to, just to circumvent that, and which we've seen a lot of, is very dangerous for the future of our democracy. You ready, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Christian asks, and this is actually in response to a preview that we put out earlier today about Higgins leaks.
Higgins leaks.
Yes. The phrase was, and I quote, "prefers to get paid in cash."
Yes.
What is that about?
Yes, get paid in cash.
Okay, who is who? Okay, what is Higgy Leaks?
Who knows? We wouldn't know anything about that.
We and it is true, and I'll say it here. I don't know who started the Higgins leaks hashtag. And I have my suspicions. I'm not stupid, but it was not made with my direct involvement. So these little video clips started coming out and hashtagging with excerpt. Right. No, I'm putting them out. No, I meant the hashtag.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else did that.
What is being nasty?
No, I know where the videos come from. We make those. I'm not I'm not trying to pretend we're all innocent. I'm just saying I don't know where it started. Anyway, what they are is excerpts from emails that Clay Higgins used on the official St. Landry Sheriff's server. Yeah. And these are publicly available documents, and they're little excerpts of his clips being read by a voiceover actor. But they show the email, and that's the clip. And one of them was that he insisted in discussion with somebody talking about making a reality show or reality appearances. I think that's specific. He wanted
We're talking
appearance
about Clay
fee.
Higgins, correct?
Clay Higgins
Okay,
wanted
Clay
to be paid.
Higgins.
He said he
Gentleman
preferred to be paid in cash, and then kind of left it ambiguously. Just wanted it paid in cash.
He said he wanted to be paid in cash and that they need to talk about this in person.
Yes.
And I can't remember why that
He
was.
did specifically
Right,
say
and said he wanted to be paid in cash, and we're talking about it in person, which means there's no, what does that sound like to you?
Justice, get over here.
That's what that's
Justice here.
about. All right, we're losing control of the narrative. It's becoming woof fest.
Justice here. Come here, boy.
Barkawoo.
Hey, you had one more that I missed.
No.
We are running out of time here, but somebody asked if you're going to be debating Clay.
Happy to. The only one I've heard about is the local TV station is trying to schedule a debate, a televised debate, to which I've been invited. I don't know who else has been invited. I assume the incumbent will be invited. I don't know who's accepted. So yes, maybe, who knows? I don't know. I'm in. Anytime Clay wants to debate, believe me, I'm in like Flint. So that's not a problem. If he becomes available to debate, you'll know because you'll see it. And the entire Twitterverse will see it, and the entire Facebook.
I would love to host a debate between you and Clay.
And there you've heard it with.
I'd give my left pinky toe.
She's got a million
Maybe even the
viewers.
big one.
Wow.
I know, and I'm a dancer,
And
so
you're
that's
a
gonna throw
dancer,
off my
but-
balance.
Yeah.
I'm willing to take one for the team.
So, yeah,
I could moderate
um,
that debate.
we would love to see a debate with Congressman Higgins. The only one I know even possible is I think the dates are, they told me to block off October 20th, 21st, 22nd, somewhere in there. That's all they told me, which is the week before the election, which sounds right based on the forums we did last time. There's also COVID-19. Let's not forget there is a pandemic. So doing these kind of things has been thrown off. Are he and I going to be in the same room? I sure hope so. We'll see. I don't know. Any other questions? You got
Has
anything?
Clay Higgins been fired yet?
We're in the process.
This is what got me tied to Rob, and I'm going to tie this in. This is what got me tied to Rob. So I'll recap because we're winding down the video. So if you saw Clay's post a couple weeks ago, Clay was posting about the protesters who were protesting, the peaceful protesters who were protesting the killing of Breonna Taylor. And he posted it to his page. And then he said, I drop any 10 of you where you stand, and whatever the case may be. So then when I started looking into to him, I came across the other things. Like, for instance, there was an incident where not a suspect, but a bystander. He had
Andre Richard.
He beat up the bystander, but that wasn't bad enough. What was bad was that him and his partner lied about it, got caught because another officer came forward and was like, nah, that ain't how that went down. And then next thing you know, he gets let go, but then starts bouncing around to other different places with all kinds of, man, I can't wait to do the month. I'm so excited. Like I'm like,
yeah, he's an easy one to find background.
Yeah.
All right. Did we cover? Is there any actual questions? I think people wanted to say hi, but let's see. Gerald had a good question further up, Rob. That's on YouTube. Let me scroll up. See if I missed
But that's
one.
how I found, to finish that off, that's how I found him, because in researching Clay, I came across the fact that he was he was up for re-election. I was like, oh, bet. I'll do anything I can in order to get this man out. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, here's a good one from Gerald. I mean, it's a softball, so which makes it a good one for us. If elected, will you fight for a bill that limits the president's ability to divert congressionally approved funding for emergencies? Yes, there's already supposed to be checks to that. As we've discovered, I don't know about anybody else, but I know my wife and I have had this discussion many times. As we've discovered, many things that we had thought were codified about president's powers and abilities were merely a matter of honor, as it turns out, such as the emoluments clause, that a president divest himself or herself someday from their personal business interests, so that way there is no conflict. Their sole duty is to the United States of America. They cannot profit off the presidency. And I always thought that was a law, and it turns out it's a guideline, to which Trump said, nah, I'm gonna do me. So yes, absolutely, a president, the Congress controls the purse, by the way. This is constitutionally mandated. Congress controls funding. And so, yes, should a president be able to divert funding? I think it was specifically what subsection with the FEMA funding that went to the border wall, basically, is what the gist of it came to. Diverted funding. And then, of course, FEMA is underfunded. Now, is this going to play out in real time as to what happened to us? I'm not doing anything but alleging it, but I'm telling you here on the ground, I didn't see a whole lot of FEMA.
I didn't see any of the days I've been here.
I didn't hear. I mean, they're usually I saw power companies, and I saw them come across I-10 from all over the country right after the hurricane. I saw power companies cutting up trees, moving me out of the way, getting power lines. I saw that. I saw not a single trailer or a windbreaker or anything that said FEMA anywhere. And I went, believe me, all across my district. FEMA trailers,
and yeah, I went even through where they were chopping up the wood behind the hospital.
And you went and found everything.
I went through the entire process, and I didn't see. I saw the staging areas for everybody. And
so, is this going to be another scandal? Is
This
going to be another scandal added on to the innumerable ones for Trump? I would hope so, because I didn't want to wish the worst. He did fly down 2 days after the hurricane, and he handed a couple of sheriffs some autographs and told them to sell them on eBay. Well, which I haven't gotten my share of that $10,000 for that autograph, by the way, Sheriff. All the people who are actually affected by the hurricane would love a piece of that pie. But nevertheless, he did come from, but I haven't seen a federal response. So to answer that question, I don't know. I cannot assure you that they were here. I can't do that. So I think we've run to about 8 o'clock. I think we're at the end of the. Oh, Dave has one more.
No, it's an announcement actually.
Oh, Dave has an announcement. Okay. You want to be on camera, or are you good?
No, it's not. I can do it from back here. All right, guys. The state of Louisiana has a deadline to register to vote of October 5th, or change your voter registration. If it's online, it's October 13th. If you see the problem with that, well, if there's anything that happens online, like a DDoS attack or something like that, well, the deadline to do it other than online has already passed. So it behooves you to check your voter registration before October 5th.
Shout that out to your viewers. October 5th. Register to
October 5th
vote.
is
Make
to
sure-
do it in person. Online, they can go to the website up until October 14th in order to 13th in order to go vote.
Make
to
sure you
register to
vote.
vote.
This is literally the most important election of your
So
life.
what is the status of voting? So are you allowed? And I think that's important. And I think that people need to be paying attention to their local laws and ways about.
What they could do right now is go to the Secretary of State's website.
Right.
Now they are going to countersue, but at the moment you can register to see if you qualify for one of the additional exemptions for voting by mail.
Voting by mail.
So you got to get to the Secretary of State's website or
Go to your Secretary of State because I have
Yeah,
followers from everywhere. So go
yeah,
to
this
your
is
state's-
Louisiana only we're talking about specifically in this. I'm sure other states have already had their processes in place. This is just literally just came down from the decision of a lawsuit because our state legislation back in May voted by mail to disallow people from voting by mail just because of COVID. And this is true. They voted by mail to say no to voting by mail, to additional voting by mail. Now, if you're already qualified for voting by mail, if you're a veteran serving overseas, of course, or elderly and have a disability, those are qualifications that are already in place. But the state legislature on a bill led by Mandy Landry out of New Orleans, your area, great rep.
I have a funny story about her too.
And you can tell it 1 second. Led a bill to say, let's have some expanded COVID-19 voting. And the legislature voted by mail and said, no, you can't vote by mail.
Wow.
And they did it by mail. And this is true. And I've been keeping that story alive. It's like, this is so Louisiana. So your Mandy Landry story.
I had my car burglarized last year, even after it was stolen. A couple months later, I had it burglarized. Yes. So the find my iPad, my laptop or whatever, it took me to a neighborhood and I saw that there was this house that had cameras on it. And then there was this nice woman who was walking down the street and my iPad was reportedly there according to the GPS.
Sure.
And she was nice enough to actually show me the footage of the person who had it. And I approached the man very nicely afterwards and I wound up getting my laptop back. This very laptop based off of her assisting me. And I was like, she was like, I'm the representative. I said, are you really? And you just stopped. Yeah. You just stopped to help some random person on the side of the street, probably thinking
great.
I'm crazy because I'm freaking out because I need my laptop and somebody just stole it and they're just in. But she helped me to recover
Mandy,
my
she's great.
property. Really
And-
random, but I was like, this is super awesome. That's a crazy story. But
Yeah. And
I didn't realize it until we started following each other on Instagram later.
Mandy Landry.
Mandy Landry.
I should have known.
Yeah. Yeah. So
She
we were
was
saying,
fantastic. This
because she's
exact
the one who
same thing. This
launched
bad
that bill
laptop.
about the voting by mail, allowing additional, which got shot down. That's what we were talking about. All right, that's it, everybody. I don't care if there are
That's
more
it.
questions. We're done. It's dinner time. What you don't know is Ash made up her special gumbo for Swampside Chat. So that's our reward. And we're extending the home. What's it called? Being gracious, the homeliness thing, where you feed somebody. What's that called? Hospitality. I couldn't think of the word. The hospitality to
a
Ruby.
long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day, long couple
been a
days,
long
long
day.
year to Ruby before she heads back to New Orleans. So we're gonna have some gumbo together. So we got a full hour hour and 2 minutes. Actually, we did great. Thank you, everybody. Let me shout out the info since all these get recorded up. My name is Rob Anderson. My website is robandersonforcongress.com. Real easy to remember. I'm in Louisiana's 3rd congressional district. It's Lake Charles, Lafayette, Morgan City, Jennings, Crowley, and all kinds of areas. The whole heel of the boot, Cameron, the heel of the boot of Louisiana, if it's an L. On Twitter at Rob Anderson 2018, because that's when I got verified in my first race. On Instagram at Rob Anderson for Louisiana. On Facebook at Rob Anderson for Louisiana. It's pretty easy to remember. Rob Anderson, Louisiana, you got it. And of course, Rubia, you want to shout out your pages?
Oh, goodness. Rubia Garcia. You can go to rubiagarcia.com, RUBIA Garcia, the regular way. You can follow me on Facebook at Rubia Garcia or Rubia Garcia, the Roman numeral 2. On Instagram and Twitter is NOLA, NOLA, Rubia Garcia.
Mhm.
Or you could also follow on, we didn't talk about the Hard Rock at all.
We didn't get that story in.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that. Let's extend a little bit because I wanted people to know that there's a reason, Rubia has got the cred now. And so we're going to go, it'll only take you 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's the
I
least
was
we
just
can
going
do.
to say that they
This is
can
like
go
a
to,
very, very serious story, but we didn't cover it.
Yeah,
But
we can go to they could go to Hard Rock 3 and find out the story, and I'll just go over it in a nutshell.
Okay.
the Hard Rock was a building that was under construction in New Orleans. It was a building that was going to become the Hard Rock. It's owned by 1031, a consortium of All Star Electric, Citadel Builders, and Kyla's companies. And the long story short is the building wasn't the same building as the original plans. The city missed it. They didn't use the right floors. They used 2-inch Versadeck composite decking instead of 3-inch metal decking. It was never meant to withhold the span between the beams. And then on top of that, they poured the concrete. There wasn't enough time in order to let the stuff cure. And then they were removing temporary shores. The building collapsed, kills 3 people. They pulled Anthony McGregor out the next day, but they left Jose Ponce Areola and Quinyon Wimberly inside the building for the next 300 days. So I got on and involved in day 110, which the count started by the victim, Anthony McGregor's twin sister. She's the one that started to count for me because she was saying it every single day. And then she was posting it on, she still to this day, she still posts every day because the justice isn't there. So we recovered the bodies, but we haven't gotten the reform, the responsible bidder ordinances that would prevent people from using non-union workers, undocumented workers, homeless workers, and misclassifying their workers and calling them independent contractors only to cut labor costs, not because they're actual independent workers and independent contractors.
You left out the worst part, which is how it came into the public eye, of course, is the bodies were visible.
So I got it. That's how I got onto it because my student had actually mentioned, and bunch of my students throughout the day have been mentioning it in class about this tarp blowing off. And I kept blowing it off because I'm like, okay, we're talking about Europe right now. Like, why are you talking about this tarp that blew up a building that collapsed 3 months ago? And then finally, I was like, what is the issue with this tarp? And the girl Reese, who just so happened to be the neighbor of the guy, Anthony McGregor, who passed in the building, she said, no, Miss G, there's the black man that's his legs are hanging out. That was behind the tarp. And I say, you're lying. And then I kid you not, she had to prove it to me. She pulled up the video or the footage and I couldn't believe it. And then I drove down there that day. And then that's when I started to research and look into everything. And then it was like the more that I went to look to try to prove and to try to explain to my students why this is taking so long. This is ultimately why I got it. Why is this taking so long? But every time I looked into it, just nothing made sense. It didn't make sense as to how it went down. It didn't make sense it made sense as I looked into it and why it's taken so long, especially when you consider that the city of New Orleans and the city inspectors never went out. It makes a lot of sense when the city of New Orleans and the U.S. attorneys were indicting city inspectors 2 months before the collapse for taking bribes over $65,000 on buildings that they had never inspected. So it makes sense that everybody wants to cover it up, especially when you also have a mayor who's taken $70,000 from one of these members of the consortium and then also having campaign fundraisers from these people. It makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean?
So where can people find out about all of that?
Hardrock3.com.
Not to cut you short, but
but that's
you got the story. So it's very
important.
important work. So it's not just that Ruby's got a little Instagram.
And then
she's out in the
they're
community
arrested me for it too.
And
so there was that part.
Well, you have the right to remain silent.
It is what it is. I'll take my charge. I did what I did. Like I tell people, if I did it, I did it. If I didn't, I didn't. At least you know where you stand with me.
Your legal counsel will tell you.
If you have to question where you stand, feel free to walk.
Yeah. So thank you all on behalf of Rubia, myself, Dave, cameraman number 1, Ash, my wife Clarissa, and of course Claire. Thank you all. We're going to go have some gumbo and friendship tonight. Common cause. Keep working towards it. Get out and vote. Do what you can do. Share the word. That's the main thing.
Share the word. That's the most important thing.
On social media, you tell somebody and they tell somebody, and then suddenly, before you know it, you got a movement. So,
absolutely.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank y'all for joining. Love y'all.